some kids dream of playing at IU basketball. Well, it just wasn't my dream. My dream was to play here in Fort Wayne for my father and hopefully help him to win an NCAA championship.
You know, volleyball has always been in my household. You know, ever since we grew up out there on Highway 24, close to the Ohio line by Woodburn. You know, my father played volleyball at Ball State for 2 years, was MVP and team captain. Taught and coached volleyball at New Haven for 4 years, then 14 years as head men's and women's coach at Harding High School before starting the program IPFW. So ever since I was born, you know, volleyball has been part of our household.
Playing volleyball in America is not an easy job, especially if you are a young man from rural Indiana. Growing up in the farm, I guess it's more of a ranch, wasn't it, Mom? A ranch out on Highway 24, right before you get to the Ohio line, where I was commanded to mow 7 acres of grass repeatedly throughout my life, and made to wash dishes by hand because Dad refused to buy a dishwasher when he had 3 born to him. And where in the summers we had to detassel corn, which is a thankless job, and hoe beans for Grandpa for quasi-free, I remind you. Not an easy place to become an Olympic volleyball player. But luckily, I had the support, I had the genetics, I guess you could say, even though looking at my father at 5'9", you'd probably deny that, to strive to be a volleyball player.
And I remember even at the age of 4 and 5, you know, Dad setting up the pillows and the cushions from the couch and making a net and blowing up a balloon and hitting the ball back and forth in the living room. And that was kind of my initiation into volleyball. And so sports, especially volleyball, was part of our lives. I think it kind of clicked for me, obviously, when I had to make a decision in high school between volleyball and basketball. But also there was a time before that. In 1984, my dad and I were watching the Olympics on TV. And it was the LA Olympics and the first gold medal that we won as an Olympic sport for the USA. And I remember Chris Marlowe, who's now a famous commentator for volleyball, running around as the backup setter with the American flag over his head. And I remember turning to Dad and say, I think I want to do that. I said, that looks pretty cool. I mean, the pride of the guys, because you're wearing USA across your chest, the flag, the fact that it was in America, had all these 20,000 people at the LA Sports Arena cheering for them. And so I just, right there, something clicked. And of course, we watched in '88 and '92 as we went gold, and bronze. And so something inside me just always knew that being an Olympian, being a volleyball player, was going to be #1 on my bucket list. And for sure enough, things went real well after I made that decision.
I started 8th grade, I was 5'8". I was end of my freshman year, I was 6'6". Now, obviously, that can't be predicted. And as my mom can attest to, finding jeans that fit me was somewhat of a tiresome ordeal. and having been able to wear your father's shoes in 3rd grade, people found somewhat comical, as you are right now. But those beginning dreams and those beginning comments back in '84 and '88 started me on this journey that I guess I didn't realize at the time would lead me to, even I have to say, an incredible life to this moment. So playing basketball at high school at Woodland, because as was mentioned before, there was no high school for boys. In the summer, my father was happy enough and proud enough to put a club together where a bunch of local kids who didn't play football got together in the fall and hit this little white ball around and went to tournaments where luckily there was, I think, 10 girls for every boy. So that was a big selling factor to get guys on the team. And we started every summer doing this. So during school year basketball, summer volleyball. Well, as I grew and become a little more coordinated, I found out I was pretty decent at both sports. And then, of course, a choice had to be made, a choice that some people in Woodburn and Fort Wayne still think I made the incorrect one.
High school seniors always face a tough choice: where to go to college, what to study. Imagine what an athlete must face in picking the right program. Now double and triple that. That's what faces Lloy Ball. The Woodland senior could very well earn a spot on the U.S. Olympic volleyball team. He's sure to get plenty of Division I basketball scholarship offers, and his father's the athletic director of IPFW, Arnie Ball.
He's done a lot to keep the pressure off me, and Coach Martin has done the same, so I'm not feeling too much pressure. I just hope and play the best ball I can. It was a real big part of my life, but now I'm concentrating on the orange ball, and hopefully I can help my team have a pretty good season. And I'm going to wait till everything clears and hopefully get our goals set and met for this basketball season, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
Ball's high school coach naturally wants Lloy to concentrate on basketball, but does admit one sport has helped the other.
Well, I think probably those two sports go together. Basketball and volleyball is carryover sports of maybe any two, because of the jumping and the quickness that you need in volleyball. You create hands and setting and so on, and I think that's really helped him. He has soft hands. He catches the basketball very well, and then the quickness in jumping in volleyball just carries over to rebounding and so on.
A couple schools have contacted me and want me to do both, but I'm not the best student in the world, so it'd be a real struggle for me.
For Lloy Ball, the time of decision is not far off, but the way he's performed in both sports, whichever he chooses, he can't miss. Tom Williams, News 15 Sports.
But to play for Coach Knight at IU or to play for this other pretty famous guy at IPFW who happened to be living in the same house as me. Well, after a bunch of deliberation and after one night at the dinner table, my father actually saying to his only 6'8" son, "I think you should play for Coach Knight." I slept on it. Immediately next morning, had a press conference and said I'm going to play for my father.
This has been a life dream of mine, and you know, some kids dream of playing at IU basketball. Well, it just wasn't my dream. My dream was to play here in Fort Wayne for my father and hopefully help him to win an NCAA championship. And I feel with me going there and his excellent coaching that we could do that.
Now, some people say just because I always did the opposite of my father, that's why I chose this. Not true, not true. But I've always considered my father and my mother my role models. I've always considered my father probably the best coach, if not in the nation, maybe the world, the most respected guy in my life, the guy who I aim to be, not only as a volleyball person, but as a father and a husband. And it just seemed like a logical choice, even at the age of 18, to play for him in Fort Wayne and try to help him and his program achieve something to that point which had not been achieved, and that's to go to the Final Four.
You know, it's a tough choice. You're not only choosing between basketball and volleyball, but once you make the choice, okay, I'm going to play volleyball, you know, there were schools, Stanford, who'd actually entertained me playing both, as well as SC. You know, I didn't get a ton of letters from other schools because I had a feeling they all figured out that if he's going to play, chances are he's going to play for his dad, unless he doesn't want to go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas ever. And so that was a pretty easy decision, actually. You know, once I decided not to play for Coach Knight and to play volleyball, it just was a no-brainer to play for my dad. I mean, there's no one I grew up respecting and loving more, obviously, than him. I still put him as the #1 coach I ever played for. No one inspires young athletes or gives 100% of their passion to the sport like Arnie Ball does. And that's going on even today at the ripe old age of 68. And so it was great. I knew it'd be tough, knowing him, and he was a rural Monroeville guy, grew up on the farm, knew what hard work was all about. I knew he'd be harder than me, than everybody else, but I also knew it'd be good for me. And there were definitely some nights after practices when I went back to my apartment in Canterbury Green where I lived for those 4 years and probably didn't say some nice things about him underneath my breath. But I knew he was doing it for the right reasons, and sure enough, after 4 years playing for him at IPFW, 3 Final Four appearances, freshman of the year, 3-time all-conference, 3-time All-American, going right to the national team, it was obviously a wonderful choice. He taught me how to compete, taught me how to play, taught me tactics of the game, and basically just taught me how to be an athlete. And he's still doing that today, to a testament to him.
Lloy Ball. Do what we came to do here. Lloyd. When I say Lloyd, you say Ball. Lloyd Ball.
I think that was a real transition period. The year before I got there, in 1989 and 90, they had a tie for the first time in the MIVA, which is the conference IPFW plays in, along with Ohio State and Ball State and some other schools. They'd never won. In fact, they'd lost to Ball State 33 times in a row. I can remember every night Dad coming home and just upset watching the old beta tapes, trying to figure out what's going on. And so I felt that well, all those losses as well. And so they got a tie in the conference, end up losing the tournament to go to the Final Four. So that was our goal, and I was lucky enough to come in a year where they had some established veterans. Another Puerto Rican player, Norman Almodovar, came in as a freshman with me, a very talented guy. And so with him and I, we were kind of the two that kind of put things over the top. And sure enough, that year in 1991, went to Ball State, played in the finals at MIVA against Ball State, the all-time favorite, and we won in 5 for our first trip to the Final Four. It was in Hawaii, which wasn't a bad bonus in the deal. And so that was our first appearance, and that was kind of how we turned the corner. And then after that, we actually beat Ball State 13 times in a row. So that kind of tells you the dominance that we kind of started. I think having that success obviously got more players, better players to come to IPFW. And if you look in the last 15 to 16 years, there's been a great increase of athletes. And I like to think that not only myself, but that kind of generation was part of that growth and part of the success now that Dad's had 7 Final Four appearances. It's funny, Dad, a lot of the guys want to join fraternities at IPFW, and he's always like, listen, you have a fraternity. It's called the men's volleyball team. And so we weren't allowed, no one was allowed to join fraternities, and it was a great call by him. It is a family. We call ourselves the Dons, Volley Dons, and even to this day, my Facebook page has a separate section for the Dons. On my iPhone right now, I probably have 13 ex-players that I still stay in contact with. Craig Collins, we call him Spider-Man. I mean, he texts me literally every day from down in Florida. We get together every year for the alumni game and have a great time, go back to my mom and dad's and tell old war stories. We really do stay close together. I mean, it's a team that a mixed bag. Players from the Midwest, a couple people from West Coast, East Coast, and Puerto Ricans. But yet, when you connect with each other and you go through those battles and you go through those practices every day, I think something always sticks inside. And just like I'm close to my USA team members, I'm very close to those guys who I played with, almost 20 years ago.